with this group, you were wrestled in Unforgiven 2002, Booker T, Goldust, Kane, and Bubba Ray Dudley. So this is right after the split. You know, you had a Kane, the brand extension, because they're really making Kane and Bubba Ray these singles guys. They defeated you guys in an 8-man tag, all four of you. That was it's a short-lived thing, the Un-Americans, but that's one match that people can look up and see the four of you together losing to Booker T, Goldust, Kane, and Bubba Ray. What do you remember about that?
It's just another day at work and just doing my thing. What was really nice about that, you know, because when you stood next to Lance Storm and Andrew Test, they allowed me. I got to wear an Un-American shirt, with the upside down flag on. So, you know, I was a goal machine, not cosmetically delightful to look at. Is that a nice way of saying that?
So it's kind of,
you know, I could. So standing next to, having been able to wear a T-shirt when I was stood next to Lance Storm, and looks like a Greek god. In fact, let me just bring it. It does look like a Greek god. We did there was just myself and Lance together, which was the night that was the ending of my run for a while, because we did a interview we were doing a pay-per-view in, I believe it was either Toronto or Montreal, and we'd been to India before that, the year before, and I'd got really ill, and I never felt right, and I felt really, really, really ill. And we were doing the following year, I think it was for February, I think we were doing a pay-per-view in Canada, and we were doing a match against RVD and Kane on the pay-per-view, myself and Lance. I'm not sure if we were the tag champions at the time, but we were tag champions a couple of times.
It was No Way Out 2003 February.
Okay, right. That night we did a promo on Sunday Night Heat and Terry Reynolds interviewed us, and I looked down and I noticed this strange swelling around my midsection, like a donut of fluid. And in that, but we're doing this promo, and I actually said this line. I said, again, these things that don't hold up, do they? Some of the stuff that I used to say. I said, and it's not my line. I've heard other people say this. It was just, you know, things come out, right? I said, look at Lance. Look at him. I said, he looks like a Greek god. I just look like a Greek. And then I said, look at his legs. I said his legs are like an Adonis. I said, and my wife's always telling me, there's nothing, you know, I forget what I said about my legs. They were like an ostrich or something. I said, and then he's got look at Lance. He's got incredible jumping ability. And my wife's always telling me I haven't got a good jump in me. And I was just, you know, just firing things up. Right. And it was just, and then we went in, and I got a concussion in that match, and then found out I swelled up, and within 2 weeks of that, I'd put on 40 pounds of fluid, and then I woke up in hospital which is another whole thing, woke up in the hospital with a tube in intensive care, with a tube coming out my neck and 8 wires coming out of it, and then I was out of work for the next year. Yeah. Trying to figure out what was wrong with my heart. So that was that. So when I remember, the only thing I remember about that match with that you said that the tag, I remember, I think I got to, it was good at the time. I liked being with the Un-Americans because I got to wear a T-shirt, so I didn't feel as, and I never usually bothered me until you stand next to Lance Storm, who looks like chiseled, incredible physique. I mean, and Test as well, but like, you know, me and Lance always seemed to, me and Lance had similar paths. I never really had a lot to do. I mean, always pleasant and polite with Christian and with Test, but me and Lance had very similar paths. He just started later than me, so he'd been to Germany, and he came from Calgary, and he had a start, his wrestling style, and so we always got on very well from the moment we first met, and we always got on. So I knew Lance a bit more as far as just spending more time talking to him, because we knew so many we knew so many of the same people. I'd come to America, then he went to Germany, so he'd always talk about things, and we had mutual conversations. Again, I don't have a lot of conversation with a lot of people. Once I came to America, my stuff's pretty limited about how much conversation I can have, unless it's about wrestling. No sports, lizards, old English variety, and soul and funk music.
Yeah.
That's the end of my conversation. So there's a lot of times people know me, and or I'll tell if I get to know somebody, I'll tell gags.
Right.
I don't. So, but me and Lance had a common interest in wrestling, where we'd been to places and we knew different fellas, and we'd talk about different wrestlers, and we'd talk about stuff, because Lance was definitely somebody who, studied, or because of growing up watching the Calgary, Stampede Wrestling, there's all kinds of things we could talk about. So that's all I really remember about that. What I do remember not long after that, and you'd have to tell me this, one day, shortly after, the four of us get asked to go in to see Mr. McMahon. And it was a very quick conversation. Mr. McMahon pointed at me and Lance, "I'm going to keep you two together as the tag team, and you fellas are going to have a change of character." And we walked out, and that was the end of the Un-Americans. And me and Lance went on to be a tag team, and me and Lance were, I thought, I've been very fortunate to have incredible tag partners. Starting with Robbie Brookside, long after that, and you'd have to tell me this, one day, shortly after, the four of us get asked to go in to see Mr. McMahon. And it was a very quick conversation. Mr. McMahon pointed at me and Lance, "I'm going to keep you two together as the tag team, and you fellas are going to have a change of character." And we walked out, and that was the end of the Un-Americans. And me and Lance went on to be a tag team, and me and Lance were, I thought, I've been very fortunate to have incredible tag partners. Starting with Robbie Brookside,